David, many thanks for joining us today. You've just released your a trading update for Q1. Can you just start by talking through what your key objectives were for WANdisco entering the year and discuss how you've delivered upon those?
Thanks, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. So the key objectives for 2020 were really centered around the work that we've been doing with Microsoft in particular around embedding our product deeply into the Microsoft Azure cloud. And we announced late last year that we were moving in something called private preview, which is where a select group of customers implement the product and use it in real life situations against their systems for moving data on premises into the cloud. And the next phase we guided the market to is that moves into public availability, a phase called public preview, which I'll come on to a little later in the discussion, I'm sure, which is a key objective, and then into general availability shortly thereafter. So that was one area. The second area is acceleration of deals. We think this year in particular, and certainly with the current environment, that companies have to look very carefully at moving large-scale systems on premises into the cloud. I think a lot of financial service companies really want to focus on financial services, not being data center companies. A lot of supermarkets right now, I know, are very focused on being a supply chain company in a supermarket, not on hosting data centers. It's a huge distraction for them. So those types of deals we think are very important this year, and they're the kind of key objectives. So we want to see revenue acceleration associated with cloud and the move and also great progress with reference to Microsoft, and then of course other cloud vendors as well. You should expect to see us build out similar deals with other cloud vendors. I can't talk too much about that right now. And also building out the ecosystem that exists around this technology with things like global system integrators too are also very important in our ability to execute. So just a reminder, our model is not having enterprise sales guys get onto airplanes. We only have a very, very small sales organization. We're very focused on embedding our software into core infrastructure and then being a function of that. And I think people are beginning to see right now that strategy is playing out very well.
Great. And then looking at the Microsoft relationship in a bit more detail, you commented in the statement that Fusion Resource Provider is now expected to enter full public availability with Microsoft in the next few weeks. Can you discuss what that actually means and also what the pathway is for that relationship over the course of the next year?
Yes. So as I alluded to earlier, private preview is a very important phase. That's really a complete product, missing a few features and functions. Kind of the bells and whistles are on the user interface and things are usually missing in that phase. But it is road tested, and we road tested with some of the biggest companies in the world. These were not sort of mom and pop shops, as we say in the US. These are very large organizations, some of the biggest organizations in the world actually testing the product, and that went very, very well. And that's kind of a significant gate to move into public availability, a public preview. And public preview is a very important step for everybody here, because when we announced what was called the Fusion Resource Provider, when we announced that functionality was only available to a small subset of Microsoft customers that we'd handpicked and enabled to use the technology. What happens in the public phase, and this is in the public, breaching any confidences here, this is in the public domain. What happens in the public availability phase is that technology becomes available across all Microsoft customers, and it also generates revenue. So this is an important milestone, probably the most important milestone in the history of the company, period, actually. So I think as we mentioned in the RNS we're very confident that that all has gone well in private preview, and we should be seeing this move into public availability in the coming weeks, in a couple of weeks.
Is public availability the final step? I mean, what happens after after public availability, and then perhaps can you just explain how you would then see the commercialization path continuing, and maybe give some indication of timescales?
From an investor's perspective, public availability is probably the most important step. Following public availability, there's something called general availability, GA, and that happens almost arbitrarily after you have a cohort of initial customers and you feel confident that you can call it general availability. But that is not an impediment to revenue, and I think that's a very important statement to make. Microsoft run this very cautiously. They don't just throw any software into even private preview. Private preview has a huge bar, as does public preview. And so essentially the general availability and all the marketing activity that comes around this will happen during the public preview stage as well. So I'm sure that we would expect to see significant incentivization and marketing programs launched around this product.
Great. And just moving on to COVID-19, can you discuss your initial thoughts on the impact that that's having on the business and how you're mitigating those, and also looking further out, what the implications are, the implications of this virus might have on the future prospects of WANdisco?
Yeah, so I mean, COVID-19, of course, is very sad for the whole planet, and what I will say is that WANdisco was a company designed to be virtual. So we don't necessarily need office space. In fact, we make products for collaboration of software engineers, software developers throughout the world, and we have, some of our customers today use our software for collaboration purposes in thousands of different geographic regions and 50,000 plus users. So we'd better be good at doing this, right? That's the software that we actually make. So the decision that we made 2 weeks ago to close all of our offices had zero impact at all on the business. In fact, we've seen, I think, significant productivity increases, particularly in software engineering, and also surprisingly in sales as well. Because remember, as I alluded to earlier, WANdisco is not reliant upon an enterprise sales organization. We don't need sales guys on aeroplanes flying to all four corners of the earth. That is not how we're designed as a company. We're designed as a company to have one-to-many. So one salesperson should be able to handle multiple accounts, and that is playing out extremely well for us right now. So the structure of the company was designed to be virtual, which has gone extremely well. Hence the disruption to service was zero. You wouldn't be surprised to learn that almost all of our applications and services are in the cloud. We don't have on-premises data centers and all of those things. I mean, again, that's the business that we're involved in. So when we cut over to home working, it happened instantaneously. We could have done it with 5 minutes notice, and it wouldn't have had an impact on the business. What we are seeing is, I think, an increased sharpening of pencils and increased demand for companies that are hosting systems on premises that suddenly realize that they shouldn't be doing that, that those systems really should be outsourced and be running in a cloud. And one of the major cloud vendors, Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, AWS, Google Cloud, and Alibaba Cloud are clearly going to do extremely well as a result of this distributed workforce. Can't have systems on premise, need to put everything, and I mean everything, into the cloud. I mean, the software we're using right now is hosted in one of the major cloud vendors for a reason, because it enables it to scale astronomically. Some of the difficulties that we've seen is tested systems beyond what they were ever designed for. The cloud was designed for that kind of scale. So that's very important. You saw us announce a significant deal. It demonstrates the resilience, I think, particularly of the US economy. under apparent great strain, and we've not really seen an impact on our sales pipeline. In fact, it's growing, and also the desire for companies to spend money, which is also a very good sign for the company, I think.